The Chinese and Indian traditions share a common goal. But this being said, it should be realized that the yoga that came out of China and the yoga that came out of India are different. Chinese and Indian traditions share a common goal: to calm the internal noise of the monkey mind, thoughts jumping from this to that to this to that, a bit like TV commercials, and connect with the energy that penetrates and interconnects all and everything. The Taoists call this energy qi, the Hindus call it prana. The problem is that modern yoga in the West focuses primarily on the physical aspects of stretching the body to extreme. It focuses on asanas. It doesn't even usually teach pranayama, which does little to build qi or cultivate internal health. This is not to diminish your current yoga practice, but to help you become aware that ultimately it is the development and circulation of qi that promotes true health and longevity. Perhaps it is best to illustrate this with a story. When I was 19, I studied yoga with Per Winter. I mean, it was really nice. He never had more than 3 or 4 or 5 people in his class. Per was a really, really unusual man. And he taught me something about qi and yoga. Now understand, classically, Hatha yoga, you were supposed to have done pranayama with it, which somehow would make me think, since prana and qi are the same thing, that Per would have had command over the qi of his body. And I was wrong. We both attended the same Tai Chi and Aikido schools. The Aikido school, where the founder of Aikido started Aikido, and the Tai Chi school in Shibuya. And everybody, every once in a while, Per might do a Hatha yoga posture, like put both his legs behind his head and just stick himself up in the air, or, do the most difficult split a human being could pull off. And he would just demonstrate. But yet everybody who watched him could not figure out this guy. I believe that, I realize it's not politically correct, but he moved like a spastic. He was uncoordinated. He was tense. When you would listen to him speak, this was not a relaxed human being, at least at a mental and emotional level. And so we said, well, how can this be? Well, first, I started looking at how did he get in? How did he get into Hatha yoga? Well, when he was a child, there was a Hatha yogi, a very good one apparently, who lived up the fjord from him in Norway. Now, how in God's name in the 1950s and 40s someone like that turned up, but he did. And Per was studying Hatha yoga from the age of 8. Now, children are naturally flexible, but between that and studying in Shivananda's ashram in India, he essentially had stretched every fiber, every muscle fiber in his body as far as it was going to go. He could do every Hatha yoga posture. There was nothing that Iyengar, for example, could do that he couldn't just do, snap your fingers, flip himself, and he was like a human rubber band. Okay, and so it's quite amazing. But he didn't have the ability to have the qi flow inside him. He just didn't. I mean, another example was when Per left India, after living in this tiny little cubicle in the Shivananda Yoga Ashram, he ended up in Malaysia and his money and passport got stolen. So in order to get the money to get to Japan and live a life and do, everyone needs some kind of money, he did a circus act where they folded him inside a suitcase, closed the suitcase, and, then people loved it. But I mean, we're talking now about there was no space that you could not crumple him into. If the body had the space to go into that space, he couldn't do it. But yet, when he did Tai Chi, when he did Aikido, we both did it at Ueshiba's, the founder of Aikido's Aikido school, and in this Tai Chi place in Shibuya, he could not actually really get qi flow through his body. Don't get me wrong about this. Per was a really nice guy. He really was. I mean, genuinely a sweetheart. But you could not figure how this guy could talk the way he could talk and what it was. And the tension that was in his emotions and the tension that was in his mind is because he never got his qi to learn how to flow. Later on, many, many, many years later, when I did Taoist yoga, well, I found out that Taoist yoga actually would make your qi flow, which I thought was, almost wish I could have, grabbed Per, taken him to Taiwan, and had him learn it. Because there was no issue of doing the pashas, but there was an issue of that. What was happening below his skin? what was happening in his nervous system, what was happening in his mind, what was happening in his emotions. He didn't train them in a way to relax them. He simply trained them in a way that would stretch them. Classically, if you go back, Hatha Yoga was not a separate yoga unto itself. It was part of what is called Raja Yoga, or the kingly path. And that is the path of meditation, the path of spirituality, of which the asanas and the pranayama were considered to be just building blocks to prepare you for Raja Yoga. Unfortunately, in America and Europe, Raja Yoga is rarely taught. As a matter of fact, just as pranayama is rarely taught. Taoist yoga begins with, it has postures, but it starts with the aspects of pranayama right from the beginning. And then later on, as every Taoist yoga set finishes with bringing the body and the mind into a state of stillness, that forms the launch pad for how Taoist yoga sets are done purely as meditation.